Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Racers Driver League for Season 18, Round 2 of the Championship, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix here from the marvellous Jeddah Street Circuit. I'm your host, Zach RC, here to take you through the next 2 hours of what should be absolutely fantastic racing here. It's the second round of this campaign. Of course, last week's race, fantastically entertaining and perhaps seeing the start of a potential new challenge in the Ferrari team of Dan and Che. Che under a different name this week, under the name EJ27. We'll still refer to him as Che, but if I refer to him as EJ over the course of the race, don't be surprised on that. But qualifying getting underway here. Imre, the first cut out on the circuit. Of course, finished P4 for Haas last week. Should be a very entertaining race indeed. Of course, Jeddah always chaotic, has been in the past. Lando, of course, took the victory last time out we went to this circuit. So this should be great for all stuff. And of course, Imre was the car in the lead for the majority of that race until the late safety car, which through the entire race on its head, Imre fell to a no-score finish, and Lando came through and nabbed the win. But of course, Imre in position, if he can repeat his pace from last season and indeed from last week, then we could find him potentially at maximum in the championship lead come the end of tonight. But that of course relies on all the podium finishers finishing outside of the podium places and for Imre to win the race. Of course, Che won the first race of the season in Bahrain last time out, led home a Ferrari 1-2, down to the flag in second, and PJ Khaled in the Kick Sauber took home third, so first podium of the season for the Green Machines there. And of course the Tifosi were absolute rapture from last week's result. We'll see if they can pull off a second fantastic performance tonight. Of course, Daniel Aron looking for what could be his first race victory in the RDL with a fine performance tonight, should that work for him. Of course, took pole in the closing moments of last week's qualifying and looking to do more of the same, go 2 for 2 in terms of pole positions in Season 18. We'll run on board with Imre then, as we go. It'll take us on the first lap. Sorry, I thought it was going to the line. We'll run on board with Imre's teammate, Tatsuki Pope, in the other Haas, as he runs towards the line. No score in last week's race to turn it around, but down towards turn 1 he goes. Of course, left hand into an immediate right. Take that in third gear, good exit. And now down towards the more technical part of the circuit that begins down at turn 5, the left-hander. Be very careful of that barrier. That's where Grumio found the end of his race last season. It's very technical complex, taken at remarkably high speeds, at 160 miles an hour through these corners. Kept it in 5th there, so holding the gear in place. Not shifting to 6th, but now in 7th. Almost 190 miles an hour, 189 miles an hour, topping out before making it the left-hander, the sweeping left-hander at the far side of the circuit. Midway now through the lap. And continuing on through the second sector, through the chicane. DRS zone, the second of them in play now in just a few moments' time. Look at the speeds you'll reach here. Imre goes fastest, 128.008. Pope topping out 199 there. Through the chicane, careful to keep that under control. Of course, that's where Lance Stroll found the end of his race in 2024. Keeping it under control. So one of the RBs there in front of him. That's the way letting Pope go. 2:02, that's the fastest in him on the circuit. Into the last corner now. Flying Duck goes second. We'll see where Pope puts himself. He's been fantastic in qualifying in recent seasons. We'll see what he's got today. Charging towards the line. Can he beat his teammate? He can beat his teammate. 1:27.9. And that was a fantastically fast first lap. Very enjoyable to watch indeed. And that was the RB of Lando we saw in action. We saw them being let past by Pope. Both cars for RB in the race this week, as it was last week. Of course, Grumio suffered quite a disappointing season opener by comparison. The reigning champion caught up in a spin on the opening lap after collision with Daniel Aron on the initial race start. And from there, things never really turned around for the 8-time champion. He retired from the race with a handful of laps to go. Pope joined him in the retirement a mere lap later. So those two looking to redeem themselves and get their first points on the board this season. So RB, not a great start for them. Lando fought back to finish in the points at the end of the race, but of course would have preferred to finish a lot higher in the order. Lando, of course, joined us midway through qualifying last week, but this week is here, so we'll see if he's got pace for quali compared to the cars around him in terms of drivers who are fast with race pace. So it's a Haas 1-2 then. Of course, this combination remains strong as they were last season, and clearly showing they've not lost a yard of pace here. Imre into the pit lane, his first lap time 128.008. Pope just under a second faster than that. Sorry, just under a tenth faster than that rather. Land on to P4. Websy goes P5 for Williams there. Flying Duck in P7 again without gaming. James Sweet once again replaced by AT in the other Aston Martin. Pope retired from the session, calling it there early on. That's for good reason too. He set a fantastic first time, so we'll keep an eye out, see if anyone else can match that. Grumio into third place, 128.141, so a solid first lap. Websy down to P6, 17 cars in the qualifying, so we should see 2 of them meet the end of their sessions at the end of this Q1. Both Haas cars now calling it quits. 10 cars set lap times. PJ Carroll the slowest them so far, 1 minute 30.5. So, by my count, that is 2.5 seconds slower than the current P1 time. Because I won't say pole time just yet. That'll be in Q3 later on. But still, a fantastic start for the 2 Haas drivers in this session. PJ Carroll then with the opening 15 points in the driver standings from that third place finish last time out. See JB on his lap. JB finished in P5 in Bahrain, scoring 10 points to kick off the season. And we've got an arrival here, and it is none other than the driver who's just at the fastest time. Pope, we saw that whole lap there. Very impressive stuff.
Don't really know where that's come from. There's a bit of time in there. Obviously, it's only Q1, but expect the Ferraris to definitely improve on their times. But it's always nice to be top of Q1, or just it clearly shows I've got some pace there.
Sets things up for the remainder of the race weekend. Of course, Imrie there in P2, so it's good to see the two. So it's good for you to see the 2 Haas cars running 1 and 2 right now. But Grumio and Dan are right on your heels there, 3rd and 4th.
Oh yeah, it's really close. I'm glad I'm the only driver in the 27s. It means nothing, obviously, because it's Q1, and I think we might even see drivers hit the 26s come the end of Q3. However, it's nice because it just gives you a bit of that momentum. I think it's needed, especially after last week.
I did want to ask you about last week in terms of sort of what went wrong in the closing stages. We didn't get to talk to you in the post-race interview, so can you give us a bit of insight in terms of what happened?
Yeah, so the game messed up my strategy. I wasn't meant to go onto the mediums twice. Obviously, a 10-second penalty was my fault, sped into the pit lane by accident, and then put me on mediums, which was meant to be hard, and then I had an incident, spun out into the gravel, and then my force feedback just completely went. So I was retiring just to be safe, and I've tried to sort out my wheel, but it's still looking a little bit weak. But hopefully it'll last for this race, especially if we've got good pace.
So is there any chance that the setting happening again in terms of the wheel?
Yeah, there's always a chance, which is unfortunate, but that's what we have when you race with technology sometimes. But fingers crossed it isn't going to happen. I've unplugged everything and plugged it all back in, so most I can do.
Fair enough. We'll continue on with qualifying. 10 minutes to go in the session. Curtis, you're on board with the now in P8. Of course, the Alpines had a decent start to the season. JB taking 10 points home from the first round in Bahrain. How do you rate those two going into tonight's race?
Yeah, no, they've really obviously impressed. I mean, JB last season did really well in Bahrain as well. Got a podium there in the first race, and I think they're definitely one to watch out in that midfield. Probably, in my opinion, maybe the strongest midfield lineup. I think they'll do very, very well. Hopefully for them, be able to try and keep on the tails of probably the top 3-4 teams.
Of course, in terms of those top 4 teams, Ferrari now join the fight. Dan and Che, or EJ for this week. Of course, is it good to see a new strand of competitors coming alongside you guys in terms of the front runners?
For our sake, no, obviously, but I mean, for everyone watching, of course, it's nice, especially Dan, who is improved by probably upwards of a second and a half, which is just massively impressive. So very interested to see how Dan will do for the rest of the season, and then obviously them two coming in a 1-2 last race. Yeah, really strong start for them. Obviously, we'll see what happens in the middle point of the season. That's always what happens, but yeah, I think they're going to be very happy with what they've done so far.
Of course, we'll have to look at the other end of the spectrum in terms of lead teams who perhaps haven't found their way in the first race. RB, who of course only took home 6 points in the end, that courtesy of Landlord. Grumio was the other retiree of the race alongside you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Grumio, you don't say never to Grumio. It's just one of those things where it was a tough race. I think it was a tough race for quite a few of us, and obviously he had a spin or a collision lap 1, and that obviously set him completely out of whack with the rest of us. So it's very hard to crawl back without a safety car. So definitely see an improvement from Grumio on this race. I think will be something to look out on, and probably even a race win in my opinion.
Of course, safety cars, there'll be no. I imagine that there won't be a shortage of those across the evening. Of course, Jeddah, typically one of the most chaotic races of the season. Is the aim just to sort of stay out of trouble for you guys as drivers?
Definitely. I mean, last season, my start to last season was horrific, so which is why I'm not in a horrific mood after a DNF last week, because I got taken out lap 1 here and then had an incident as well on the closing lap. So yeah, it's all about, I think with this race you are definitely thinking about that safety car. The safety car is pretty much inevitable. I think we've had one every time we've raced around here in RDL, which I think also matches the real life record, so it is prone to incident sport. We've only got 17 drivers, which does reduce the chance of that just ever so slightly.
We'll keep an eye out in terms of later on in the evening as to should we see that safety car or not. Right on board now with Ben, who's coming into the last corner. Of course, Ben taking P6 himself last time out in Bahrain. He charged up towards the line, looking to try and make the Q3 for the second time in a row this week. Towards the line, we'll see what time he's got lined up. 1 minute 30.2 on the board. That puts him P11 right now. 4 drivers yet to set the lap times. Make that 3. Yoglu comes across the line P11, just behind his teammate for tonight, Red Jake. Of course, Yoglu, one of the 2 reserves in this race. Because we had all 3 last week in term with the addition of Letank and Sniper Hunter, or aka Sniper Hunter rather. Of course, it's good to see him back in the league. But yeah, I think you have to agree.
Oh yeah, as much as he yaps on in the chat, everyone loves Sniper Hunter. I think he's a cracking driver, and that run in what was it, season 16 now?
15.
I believe it was 15. Sorry, where it was an immense run at the start of that season. But obviously times have changed, and the pace is still there. Pace is definitely still there. We saw that last week, making it into Q3 and fighting for a podium as well. So yeah, interesting. And I'm not too sure, but I think we actually might have 18 drivers in this. I'm pretty certain another Sauber will be joining us, but I could be wrong on that.
The other Sauber being Ethan, so whether we'll see him come along later on in the session remains to be seen. But of course, that would then mean that 3 drivers get eliminated from Q1 should he arrive in time. As of right now, only 2 drivers being eliminated. As it stands, those 2 being 10th Cannon and JB. JB's out on the racetrack, as is 10th, but JB's on a time lap, whereas the Red Bull of 10th is not. Of course, 10th nabbing the last point last week, and JB nabbing 10th for himself, so 2-point scorers in the bottom part of the order right now.
I think that you'll see that a lot this season. I mean, obviously we're going into that second season of the game cycle, so everyone's got their tracks now that we've seen. As JB slides through there, wow, that was very tense. Going through that sector of the track as the DRS opens for this incredible left-hander. Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of point scorers getting knocked out in Q3. It's going to be very, very close, I would say. As JB's been saying that he's been struggling with this track all week, and I think you can really see that Alpine just not looking settled at all.
Of course, Curtis in the other Alpine right now in the top 10. It's running P9 at the minute, just behind Flying Duck and Piet, only 100 or 2 between those guys. Another 4/10 back to PJ. We'll see what sort of time JB has lined up on the board as he comes towards. I think we're looking at a 29 here, 129.6 up him to P11, and that will move both Red Bulls, so Cotton Goblin and 10th Cannon into the drop zone. But 10th coming through, so we'll see what she's got lined up. Of course, she's been fantastic in qualifying since joining the RDL, but of course a Q2 exit last week in Bahrain. I imagine she will try and rectify that here.
Yeah, I think 10th is that race in Mexico was unbelievable, and obviously the form's still been there, but I think she's been a bit disappointed as well, not been able to obviously get practice in, so the pace has dropped ever so slightly. But as soon as 10th's on it, it's just incredible to watch. One of the best drivers to watch, in my opinion, on board.
A few more retirements here. Lano and PJ both calling into their session. Of course, PJ under a bit more risk. You won't want to do that from P10 in Q2. I'll say that immediately, because of course the risk of someone improving and then knocking you out is a lot more apparent. But of course, Q1 only 2 drivers set to go out, as we've said, so most likely safe for the time being. I think 60 of these 7 drivers in the bottom half of that will have to go faster to knock him out. So I imagine he's under less pressure than you think than he perhaps normally would be. But Tenth Cannon on her way through the second sector now. We'll see what sort of time she's got lined up for us as she nears the second intermediate here. 1 minute 1.6, not too bad in terms of lap time. We'll see in terms of how the rest of the lap finishes here. DRS going wide open on the RB20. She runs down towards the last proper corner on the circuit. One of the Alpines going slow in front of her there. She want to try and make sure she's out of the way. There we go. Into the last left-hander there. A bit of a lock-up on the way through, but a solid exit. And charging towards the line, we're probably looking at a 28 here. 127, 128, just a 129, only just. I hate it when I'm that close, but that brings 3 cars now close together. 3 cars from entirely different teams. Aston Martin, Red Bull and Alpine, and their drivers, in terms of their top drivers, separated right now by just a few hundredths of a second. Very close indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty close, I think, from, I'd say probably Websy down as well. Obviously 3 temps only. Obviously 10, 9 and 8 are very, very close, but only 2 temps off Che, I think. That'll be, obviously, we have to bear in mind that they're probably not pushing 100% at this point. I don't think many of the drivers in probably the top 5 are pushing, top 6 are pushing too hard. But yeah, I think they'll take a lot of confidence to that, especially Temp, who just need a little bit of momentum to swing her way, I think.
Of course, that'll move Ben down into the drop zone. 1 minute 30.279 as best effort as Reggio goes for a bit of a run over the newly redesigned what's the word, decals on the side of the racetrack there. But keeping it under wraps in that Mercedes, of course, still looking for their first point of the season after last week. Reggio and FSS, perhaps not what they said to me last week in terms of pace. Didn't feel like the pace. They didn't feel like the result represented the pace they had. I think I had to agree with that.
Yeah, I would probably have to agree with them. I mean, I think it was a bit unfortunate for them because, I mean, in qualifying, they were both pushing to get into Q2, which is something that both drivers will admittedly say that she struggled on last season. So very, very interesting to see that they've stepped into this Mercedes and just found that little yard of pace. So unfortunately, they weren't able to get points, especially in such a chaotic race as it was last week.
Of course, you've driven that Mercedes, Pope. Is that a difficult beast to wrangle, or what are we saying there?
I'm finding the Haas a lot harder, to be honest. I love that Mercedes. Obviously got 3 wins in it last season, so it can't have been too slow. But yeah, I think drivers are probably still trying to settle into their cars. I'm finding it really hard to adjust to this Haas, so that might be an explanation of my little drop of pace, but I think they're going to be quite happy in that Mercedes for the rest of the season.
Checker flag has now fallen, and Courtney Goblin is guaranteed to be out of qualifying. Didn't get to the line in time to set a lap. But Ben, though, is half a second up in the second sector. So there's every chance he improves enough to get himself out of the drop zone, and perhaps even as high as P13. So a few places above the drop zone, that will knock Yogolu out of the stands. But Yogolu also, I believe, on a lap. Ooh. Yep, P11.
Yeah,
there goes on the line.
P11.
Here comes Ben towards the line. He gets himself into Q2. P13. That'll put Reggio on the bubble. Reggio was sliding for a second there. AT is also on a lap. The reserve in Aston Martin. It's going to come down to these two, I reckon, in terms of who goes out. Of course, if both of them improve, then JB will be eliminated from qualifying, but that'll take them both improving by at least about 3 or 4 tenths. Reggio's 8 tenths down, but ooh, and that was quite. And honestly, I expected a lot more damage from that, so he's got away with that quite nicely. But AT was a quarter of a second up in his first sector. He's now 3 tenths up in the second. So that'll be enough to put Reggio out at this rate. And there is Reggio there on the right hand side, and we'll see a good toe for AT off of the RB of Grumio here. I think we might be fixing to try and break that top time, but he's 2 seconds down at the minute, so no risk of that. So Popa looks at your top time is intact in Q1, and here comes AT towards the line, looking at a 1 minute 29. Can he make it? He can make it, and that will unfortunately knock Reggio out of qualifying. But close though, very close to that Mercedes.
Yeah, a great little session there towards the end. Obviously, it's unfortunate. It always is when you don't have a full grid and only 2 drivers get eliminated. But looking at that pace, everyone's so close to each other. I think it's going to be a fantastic race, I do have to say.
And of course, qualifying continues on in the matter of moments. But Pope, obviously, at this point, you probably need to concentrate a bit more. So feel free to hop out whenever you're ready, and we will perhaps see you back here later on.
Hopefully.
So that was Q1, and we'll jump now into Q2. Welcome back then. Time for Q2 to get underway. Now, of course, 15 drivers remaining in qualifying, and of course, we'll lose 5 of those by the end in the next 15 minutes or so. So hopefully, we should see a real scrap for places. Emery, the last car in terms of pit boxes. This will be the first car out onto the circuit. See who follows him out. See one of the Ferraris going through. That'll be Daniel Aron making his way out. Flying Duck also onto the circuit. Pope following just behind. So the early barrage of cars making their moves on the exit. Of course, perhaps one of the closest parts of qualifying is Q2 as drivers fight for those last few places. But we'll see who's got the speed to sort of guarantee themselves a place in the top 10 fighting for pole position, and who will have to perhaps push a bit harder and push tooth and nail to try and make the top 10 shootout. Of course, pole position could be in anyone's game if qualifying last week towards anything. So Emery getting the tyres warm here. Seeing them back and forth there to get those soft tyres up to peak condition. Look at the speed he reaches here. We'll see if he can hit 200 on the way through. He's moving a lot more, so I imagine not in this case. But he reaches 180. Can he reach 190? 189 at best. In what I believe is the speed trap there, the logo, the icon on the side. We'll watch his lap here, and we'll keep an eye on his ERS as well. Already jumping into overtake, using about 30% of it for the laps even started. Into hot lap mode then for turn 1. Yeah, a lot of lock up there on the tyres. Over the curbs, massive over the curbs there at turn 1. A good start. Yellow flag behind. That's one of the Mercedes cars backing off. Emery keeping the car under good control here as the end comes towards the end of the first sector, avoiding scratching that inside wall. The team was fighting for control a bit there. 31.8 is first sector. Into the sweeping left-hander at the far end of the racetrack. Moving back out to the right on the exit. So a solid lap so far. Seeming as fast as he was in Q1. And Websy's retired early on. Is that a crash? That's a crash. Websy and Pope have collided. That's a big shunt there. And Pope with a 5-place grid penalty for that. Unsure as to what's happened, but Websy and 10th Cannon both out. No clue. Apologies for missing that. No clue what's happened there. Emery off the last corner. Emery 128.094, very close to his initial time. Dan into P2, 128.139. I'm really not sure what just happened there. Pope will have to regroup, get a wing change there. Oh! And not sure what happened there. Off into the barriers goes Pope. It keeps it running. I think he'll wait to let Ben go too, and then make his move. Re-enter the racetrack. But concern in the Williams camp as their lone car goes out in Q2. 10th Cannon, as I say, also out. 4 cars have made time so far. Here comes the 5th one. PJ on the line with P4. Both Ferraris across the line. 128.1 for Dan and 128.4 for Che. We'll see if the RBs don't have any more pace. Of course, they hung back slightly in Q1. Grumio 32.3 in his first sector. That could be a concern. It's slower than Emery's first time. It's through the second sector. DRS now. They're being deployed for Grumio. Ferraris in front of him. Probably has to move out of the way. Going considerably slower. Good navigation there from Che to get out of Grumio's way. Of course, those two have had 1 or 2 fights in the past. There's the Alpine, I believe it's JB, and it is. But Grumio though, off the final corner, yellow flag in behind him. Not to be too concerned about. We see a 27 here. 128.4, so third fastest time. So we'll slot in between those 2 Ferraris. Pope in the pit lane there. Having to repair that wing to go fresh again for his Q2 run. Ben for the last corner. Managed to get himself into Q2 that late lap. Has he got the speed to do it again? P9 for him. So that will get him in the top 10 for now. But of course, 3 drivers yet to lap times. Pope back on the racetrack. JB out there now. On a time lap. And that is one of the RBs moving out the way for him. Good awareness from both RB cars there. Looking to add to the 6 points they scored with Landlord last time out. JB now coming up on his teammate Curtis. Curtis P7 right now, 128.9 his best effort. Just a few tenths off of Landlord. I think JB may have gone a bit too deep there, but his teammate let him go out of the way. But that was close to being perhaps a lot more catastrophic for the Alpine pair. JB invalidates though. I think that might have been him running over the curb when Curtis moved out of the way, but not too sure. AT on his out lap, managed to get himself into Q2. Of course, one of the 2 both reserves have made the second part of qualifying. Pushing elsewhere. Grumio into the pit lane here. JB, not having much luck. He's back in the pit lane. Pope, one of just 3 cars on the racetrack. Sorry, no, that is 4. I was right. Yoglu there. 1 minute 1.7 in his second sector. Into the final corner now. We'll see what he's got. Towards the line, looking at 129, 129.4. It's enough for P8 right now, so still very close proceedings here. I'm saying that the majority of the top 10 are arguably a lot closer. Second covering the entire top 7. And there's one of them into the garage once again. Perhaps go for one more run in this session, but perhaps not as under as much risk. Pope and JB, those are the ones I think we'll probably be concerned about in terms of not being in the right position to advance from qualifying. JB going back out there. Of course, made a number of Q3 appearances last season. Looking to add to those this time around. Imrie goes fastest. The fastest time we've seen on light, 1:27.7, and for the second week in a row, it looks like though he set his fastest time in Q2. Yoglu coming in this time, 80 of the line, P9 for him. That'll put Ben outside of the top 10. Dan retires from P2. Pope still in the pit. JB still on his outlap. Red J disconnecting there. Red J, as it stands, running. Red J at 1 and 2 cars out qualifying. Will start P16 for the race. But of course, Pope with that 5-second grip, that 5th-place grip penalty, that'll impact him. So he can't start any higher than 6th place, but can he still try and race for pole position? I think for now though, he needs to get his skates on, because if things stay as they are, then not only does he go out qualifying Q2, he'll be starting dead last for the race. So far I haven't seen any sign of Ethan's arrival as he perhaps proposed that there would be. We'll keep an eye out for him. JB again invalidating. He is not having the best of runs here. Ema retiring, calling it there. Four tenths right now. He's got over Dan in 2nd place. Almost Dan. Can't close in on the minute. But those two more than likely safe in Q3. Still 11 drivers at times. Three minutes to go in Q2. Nearing the end of the session. So it's gone quite quickly on this here. There's still a number of drivers who haven't set lap times yet. JB on that invalidated lap. Pope going towards the end of the 2nd sector. So on board here, we'll see what sort of speed he reaches going towards the chicane. At 199, 1 minute point 3. That's a very solid lap as of so far. Into the final corner here. Can he put himself up at the time on the board? He topped Q1. Can he top Q2 as well? Can he make it a 1-2 for Haas once again? Towards the line. 1-2 for Haas, but this time he's the one behind. Imrie stays on top. Pope is in 2nd place. And that'll move PJ Khaled into the drop zone. JB 32.8 out on another lap. Needs a valid lap time on the board. He's only get one more chance after this one, so he's got to make this one count. Pope retiring, calling it there for Q2. Top 3 more or less safe. Che calling it quits too. That is Grimio out on the racetrack. P4 right now. Shouldn't imagine we'll see him go out. Red J rejoining us. Into the last corner. The lap is valid, but in terms of pace, where will that put him? I think that's a 29 here. So now for P10. On the board there by about 4/10 of a second. But Ben starting will be his final lap. PJ here on what might be his final lap here. And 18 on his out lap, about to start his last tour in what could be his last tour in qualifying. But he needs to improve by a good few tenths here to get himself into the last part and join Yogolu in the top 10. Can we get both reserve cars into Q3? Have to see here. And JB out. And that can be okay because if JB, I assume he's probably invalidated. Checkered flag has now fallen. PJ over the line. P11. JB's out of fuel. And he could be potentially in trouble here. Because if either one of AT or Ben improve, Ben's up by less than a tenth. AT's down by a tenth, so I think JB could be safe here. But that AT's first sector was a tenth down. Let's see what his second sector is like. He's about 4 tenths. He's a tenth up. Now this could be potentially a late charge to take the final place in the top 10. Can AT do it? Ben towards the line. He'll improve. He improves to P10. It's a big day in the final sector. Ben pushes JB out. Can AT push Ben out? He needs half a second here. It's going to be close. P12 for him. So for the second week in a row, Ben squeezes into Q3. JB, AT, PJ, Webzy, and 10th Cannon all out. He just ran out of fuel at the end of his lap. Didn't make it round. And that will put JB out of qualifying in Q2. So there's your top 10 in terms of who goes through to Q3. Imrie tops the session from Pope, then Dan in 3rd, Grumio 4th, Che 5th, Flying Duck in 6th, Landlord 7th, Curtis 8th, Yoglu 9th, and Ben rounds out your top 10. JB, AT, PJ, Webzy, and 10th Cannon all finding into their qualifying here in Q2. So it's time now for the top 10 shootout. Who will nab pole position for this race? It's time to find out. And time for Q3. Trying to see who will make it into the final part of qualifying. Sorry. This is the final part of qualifying. We'll see effective pole position. There we go. Got my words out in the end. So 10 drivers left. In terms of the teams who got both their cars into Q3, there's 3 of them this week. In Ferrari, that's going to be Dan and Che. Haas in Pope and Imrie. And RB in Grumio and Landlord. So of course, pole position, anyone's game at this point. I can see any at least half of this grid taking pole position. Of course, the outliers in terms of being all by themselves, team-wise, Flying Duck, Curtis, Ben, and Yogalu, all making it to Q3. Majority cars all going out there for that initial. That probably being part of that first run. Grumio and Landlord out a bit later than everyone else. So the first car out there once again is Imrie. Sorry, no, this time it's Pope. But regardless, it's still a Haas who comes out first. So we'll see what they've got lined up. Pope starts, will be his first lap of the session. We'll likely see 2 or 3 laps done over the course of Q3. Coming behind, and Curtis across the line, Yogalu there, all of them starting their first laps. So that's half the pack beginning here. End of the first sector, Pope's looking at a 31.9. Decent start. Out the chicane, good exit so far. It's been a solid lap from the Haas man. Looking to have the team's first pole position of the season. One minute 0.5 in sector 2 as Pope has he got what it takes to out-qualify his teammate? I think probably in terms of qualifying is his biggest rival. In terms of car speed, both of them are topped sessions tonight. Of course, Pope, who we spoke to earlier, set the fastest time of Q1. He was topped by Imrie in Q2, but still went second. And it was the opening time of Q3, 1:27.8. That'll be tough to beat. Imrie coming through behind him. Imrie does beat that 1 minute by quite a way too. 1:27.556. Ben starts his timed lap. Yogolu towards the line. Yogolu 1:29.1 and puts in P3 for the minute. Flying up into P3 himself. 1:28.7. Here come the Ferraris. Of course, the two cars locked the front row last week. Down across the line. 1:27.8. And Che towards the line. They're coming into the pits. So we won't see a time from him this first run. Here come the two RBs. Grumio and Valades is into the pits. Landlord is into the pits too. So half pack second time so far. Other half have not. But Ben and Curtis both on the racetrack right now. Ben towards the end of the second sector. 1 minute 1.7. Pope is out there just in front of these two, as is Imrie. I imagine we'll see those two stop this time. Both of them coming in. Ben getting a good DRS toe off them towards the line. 1 minute 30.5. Slowest time so far. Of course, remember, Pope has that 5-place grid penalty. So right now they'll put him 8th on the grid. Curtis P4. There's Grumio emerging back on the racetrack now, going again. Of course, Grumio has formerly won in Jeddah before. Won this race back in season 15. Of course, the one season in recent times in which he did not race with Landlord. He was alongside Sniper Hunter that season. Won this race and then won Australia the week after. So could we see a repeat of that potentially? But if there's ever a good time to do it, be now, because of course no points on the board from the first race. Then hitting the wall there. A delicate tap, but still hitting the wall nonetheless. But I don't think he's done any damage to that McLaren, so we'll carry on. And with a few cars on the track, 2 of them being on outlaps. And when we see Che emerge, because he's still got to come through and set a lap 2. Pokemon back out here. 5 minutes to go. So definitely time for one more run. Whether there's time for 2 runs is there's probably less of a chance for that.